Welcome to the Gridiron.
Hey everybody, welcome in. The 2021 NFL fantasy football season is amongst us
It's upon us.
and it's upon us. It's good. It's finally here. It's going to be competitive. Teams are looking good. We're here today to look at our draft recap, go over what went right, what went wrong, interesting choices, early picks, guys that fell in drafts, became good values. Obviously, we don't know how the season's going to play out, so it's all speculation at this point. But yeah, pretty exciting stuff. And overall, I think everyone drafted a good team, and I think it's going to be pretty competitive all across the board.
I agree. I was impressed with the two newcomers. They did well. There were very few picks where I was like, what? Most of them I understood. And also, I think it'll be interesting doing this recap video to come back at the end of the year and see who we thought were great picks that ended up not being great picks, and then vice versa. Like,
Yeah, there's always injuries that come up, and I am glad that we waited as late as we did
me too.
to draft. I know there's always talk, you especially, and I think a few other people want to draft beginning of August at family reunion, and so I'm glad that we waited.
Not a certain, if we drafted that early, I'd draft like no running backs and all handcuffs because I know they get injured.
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins being big one. Cam Akers, I think, was still around then. That would have been a
Etienne.
big loss. Yep. So, all right. Well, let's get
Draft
to
board.
it. And should be able to share it here. You see that all right?
Oh yeah.
All right, so let's get to it. Let's look at the first couple of rounds here. Pretty chalk, I would say. Round number one. I also say we have our two newcomers drafting at 1 and at 12.
Yep.
So that was kind of interesting how that worked out this year. But starting out pretty straightforward, Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara. Not super surprised that there wasn't a wide receiver drafted or Travis Kelce in those first couple of picks. People want their running backs early. It led to Ezekiel Elliott going 5th. And I would say probably the first non-chalk pick was mine, Austin Eckler in that round. A little bit of a reach, but I wanted top running back. He's high on my list, and he wasn't going to come back around.
Yeah, he probably most drafts, Eckler and Saquon would be switched in terms of their position. You'd see Saquon going around 6 and Eckler going around 11.
Also, Jonathan Taylor is usually ahead of Eckler. Aaron Jones is usually ahead of him. But it's just, you got to take who you like. Travis Kelce does go end up next. Depends what platform you draft on. Sometimes he makes it to the end of round 1. So probably about where he should be. Could have gone a few picks lower, but again, not a guy that's coming back in the draft, and pretty much for sure lock of number 1 tight end in fantasy again.
Yep, I probably would have taken him if he was still there at 11.
I do think Aaron Jones going by Shark Nation. I do think maybe Gabe or somebody farther down the line was looking at Aaron Jones. So a little bit of a sneaky pick there.
I know Gabe and Pops are both looking at him. Although I know Gabe with Legalize Ranch was really stoked to get Nick Chubb. Gabe loves Chubb. So I think he's really happy about that pick.
And Devontae Adams, first wide receiver, the only wide receiver off in that round, coming in at pick 9 by the Tolt Demons.
Yeah, Tolt Demons went with almost like a 0 RB strategy this time, which was interesting. Makes sense with them being the first one to grab a wide receiver.
And it's set up well with round one, him having the only wide receiver off the board, sets up some good potential. Um, it would have been nice if either Tyreek Hill or Stephon Diggs dropped to him in the next round, because that would have been probably ideal to start. But round two, they do go early. Some wide receivers, Tyreek Hill, first pick of the second round, followed by Najee Harris, Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, Allen Robinson, Antonio Gibson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Calvin Ridley, Dak Prescott, first quarterback, AJ Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, James Robinson.
Yeah, the first round overall was kind of vanilla, like nothing crazy. Maybe Eckler went a little high, maybe Saquon went a little low, but nothing to bat your eye, right? Like just normal first round, whatever. And then in the second round, there were a few picks where I thought people went early on guys. Not that they were bad picks, they were just surprising picks. Mostly Allen Robinson by Sharp Nation. I was not expecting him to come off the board there at the 2.5 pick. I think
little early, I would agree. Especially, I was really surprised. The guy I was watching was Antonio Gibson. I thought for sure he wouldn't make it past you and Gabe at the top of the order, but he did, and I was super excited. And then Miles and Miles, Joe's team, got a super good value on Antonio Gibson right there in the middle of the second round.
for me, it was between Gibson and Harris.
Yep.
And I had them really similar in terms of where I think their ceiling is. And I think Najee just has a slightly higher floor. And with the risky Saquon pick, I decided to go with a slightly higher floor. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I really like Harris. He for sure would have been my pick if he had dropped that far.
I know Gabe's
So
plan here
yeah.
was to take Stephon Diggs, and then he was hoping to get Josh Allen on the swing back. He wanted to stack them up. Unfortunately, that didn't work for him. But I know he's really happy with the quarterback he got. But that was his intention, taking Diggs and not Antonio Gibson, as he wanted to stack.
I do think we see Seahawks go a little bit higher in this draft than you normally would, because it's our local team. DK there, pick 4, not a bad value at place, not a great value. I do think it's just a few picks earlier than you would see in a normal draft, just because of the local team aspect.
It's true, but he's not coming back either. So another one of those guys where if you want him, you got to take him there.
Yep.
I think
Dak Prescott, first quarterback in the round or in the league, taken a little early. I think you could have waited another couple rounds to grab and still gotten Dak.
Yeah, and he probably could have waited at least one round and still got Dak in the third.
Quarterbacks went early.
They did go early.
Overall in this draft. So,
Sam, you and I were the only people without quarterbacks in the 10th round, or even in the 6th round.
Yep.
Which it makes it hard to stick to your draft quarterbacks late strategy when everyone takes them early and they all start disappearing. Kind of.
Well, for me, you either draft a tight end early or you draft a quarterback early to try and get one of those top guys. If you draft both a tight end and a quarterback, you're really weakening your other positions, your running backs, your wide receivers. So it's kind of an either or for me. And we'll see here in the third round, I went tight end. So that made me go late on my quarterbacks. But I'm really happy with who I ended up with at the end.
I do think it's interesting that Metcalf, Robinson, Ridley, and Brown went ahead of Hopkins. Because on my list, I have Hopkins the number 4 wide receiver right before DK. So I think Hopkins fell pretty far, and I think Gramps got a sweet pick there at 2.11.
Yeah, no, he was looking for AJ Brown, I think, for his guy, but I actually think he got the better wide receiver.
I totally agree. Then I also Luke's pick at 2.12. I really liked that.
He goes back to back with James Robinson and Patrick Mahomes. So he's got Chris McCaffrey, he's got James Robinson, who's with the Etienne injury should be a good amount of volume this year. Again, new system, new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, a lot of newness in Jacksonville. So it's kind of a little bit of an unknown, but he is a solid running back to have as your RB2 and to pair with McCaffrey. And then he's got Mahomes. And I think we saw this last year, McCaffrey and Mahomes on the same team.
We did. They're on Jason's team.
So not as uncommon as you'd think. Potential number one.
My team.
Yeah, potential number one quarterback, potential number one running back. Pretty solid there. Yeah.
Again, I think in round 3, it's crazy how far Joe Mixon dropped. One of the farthest droppers in the first couple rounds.
Yep.
Travis ends up getting him at 3.5. And I had him right after Antonio Gibson. It's like Harris, Gibson, Mixon. And I get that you take a Seahawk like Chris Carson because we're Hawks fans, but like it did surprise me that people didn't take Joe Mixon in the second round, and then it surprised me that Carson and McLaurin went ahead of Mixon. So I think Mixon a big steal for Travis there in the third.
So recap in the third, Patrick Mahomes coming off 3.1, and Chris Carson, followed by Josh Allen, who's the third quarterback off in the draft, Terry McLaurin, Joe Mixon, George Kittle, Miles Sanders, Kyle Murray, Darren Waller, David Montgomery, Justin Jefferson, and Keenan Allen. I also thought tight ends. I was really hoping this was my big plan. Grab whatever tight end came back to me at 3-6, because I thought for sure at least one of them would go beginning of the round. Probably both of them.
Yeah,
I was really happy that they were both there, and I had my choice. I went with Kittle. Waller dropped a few more spots to Demons. We know Aaron loves a nice solid tight end, and he got him there.
Surprising to me that he took Darren Waller though, seeing as how he took Adams and DK. I really thought he was going to take a running back there.
It makes his running back depth somewhat question.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would imagine early on in the season we have injuries that he will be high on the fab list, spending some fab to get a replacement running back when they become available. There's always one or two at the beginning.
The only problem
of every season
with our deeper benches this year, almost all the handcuffs are rostered. Like, there's very few that aren't rostered that you'd want as your starting running back, which just makes zero RB a little harder with the 18 bench on 12-team league. So
there will be guys that come out of nowhere, like James Robinson last year was an undrafted free agent that nobody had on their bench, even in deeper leagues. And so there's always values to be picked up.
I think we see how many quarterbacks go in this round. Only 3 quarterbacks in this round, but already like the top quarterbacks are gone, right? Like there's not any top quarterbacks left. Gabe picks up Montgomery for his RB2. Like that pick. I thought Jefferson was a steal in the third for me. Most of the mock drafts I've done, I see Jefferson going at like mid-second round as like the first 6. So I thought that was lucky on my end to be able to scoop him up right there.
Definitely, I think it's a good value. There's always the wonder is he going to repeat his amazing rookie season? Everything points to that. Yes, he can. So we'll see. But if he does, that's a great value.
Sets up my team as really high risk all of a sudden because I had Saquon risky, Najee unknown, Jefferson I would consider the riskiest of like the wide receiver ones. So at this point I was like, all right, high risk team, let's roll with it.
Turning around to round 4, DeAndre Swift, Robert Woods, Amari Cooper, Russell Wilson, Mike Evans, Adam Thielen, CeeDee Lamb, Chris Godwin, Tyler Lockett, Deontay Johnson, Ryan Tannehill, and Juju Smith-Schuster rounding out round 4. A couple of things to note. The guy I had my eye on who dropped me was CD. I was a bit surprised to see Amari Cooper going over CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah. Well, Gabe and I are both in consensus on this. We think Cooper is the wide receiver 1 in Dallas, and we think CD is clearly the wide receiver 2. And so it doesn't really surprise me. I get it. Especially in our league, he will get some punt return yards if he's really the punt returner. That helps. But I think I'm slightly less high on CD than you are, although it is still a really good value at 4.7 to snag him right there.
Yeah, I've seen him go as high as in the second round for people who are really in on him.
There's a lot of hype around him this year. I think for good
A
reason.
lot of potential for a second-year breakout. There's this new. It used to be, your third year in the league as a wide receiver, you tend to break out. That trend is now going more towards your second year. So I have that in my head, and I do have a couple of second-year wide receivers that I've stacked on my team, hoping for that second-year breakout.
See, I could have taken CD or Cooper, right? But I don't know how I feel about Dak and his injury and his shoulder. I'm rooting for him, but I'm just not sure, right? I have a feeling like they're going to run the ball a lot. And I wanted a share of either Woods or Cup with Stafford. I think they're going to both have 1,000-yard, 10-touchdown seasons. And so I took Woods instead of them, maybe a slightly lower ceiling. But I feel like Woods a higher floor there.
And we're starting to see people do these stacks, quarterback wide receiver stacks. So we get Tolt Demons grabbing Russell Wilson to have the DK Wilson stack. We have Team All Wise grabbing Ryan Tannehill to get the Tannehill. I believe he grabs Julio Jones in the next round. Yes,
Yep.
he does. Grab that Tannehill Julio stack. A little early for Tannehill. He's usually a little bit later, but if he's your guy, he's your guy.
I mean, I see Tannehill going like the 10th round, and he's like, people say, oh, he's the sleeper quarterback. And it's like, well, everyone knows that he's good. I think Grams was wise to take him early. I don't think he would have made it back to him.
Yeah, he does these on games where it's a heavy Derrick Henry game. He can have these disappearing acts. So there is some inconsistency with Ryan Tannehill, but overall, he was definitely somebody I wanted late. Again, that 10, 11, 12th round he was kind of one of the names I was looking at, but not even close to falling that late.
No. Luke, I thought, made some interesting picks here. Juju and Mark Andrews. Those are both guys that I wouldn't have drafted at those positions. There's just other receivers I like more than Juju. I wouldn't spend the capital on Mark Andrews in round 5. But
So
they're bad picks at all.
Yeah, next couple of wide receivers off the board. There were still Julio around. Cooper Kupp was still there, which I thought would have been probably where I would have gone if I was going wide receiver. DJ Moore was still on the board.
Yeah.
Even people like Brandon Ayuk.
Yep.
Was still there. Those are all guys I would probably have over Juju. And then the Mark Andrews pick, like you mentioned. Again, I am all on board for either drafting a quarterback early or a tight end early. So Luke has grabbed both. He's got Mahomes and Mark Andrews as tight end. So when we get to the end, we'll look through and but generally that means either your running back or your wide receiver is going to be not as deep as some of the other teams.
Yeah, I think for him that just meant wide receiver was a little less steep. And I think just the talent of like a Cooper Kupp sitting there versus a Mark Andrews, like I think later in the season you'd be really happy to trade Mark Andrews for Cooper Kupp. But maybe we'll look back and that won't be the case.
Rest around 5, Mark Andrews, Julio Jones, Chase Edmonds, Josh Jacobs, Cooper Kupp, Gus Edwards, Miles Gaskin, Javonte Williams, Kareem Hunt, Mike Davis, Damian Harris, DJ Moore. So a lot of guys who running back value usually can dip another round or two, but I think people wanted to snag their running backs before it got too late and it disappeared. So a lot of running backs off the board in round 5.
Oh yeah. One of the, I think, better picks of this draft was Annie with Josh Jacobs in round 5.4. Like, even though Drake is there, I still think of Jacobs as one of the most reliable RB2s that you can snag. And
Yep.
so I think she got a great pick there with Jacobs.
Yeah, it was kind of that sweet spot. He fell another round or two because of so many people grabbing their quarterbacks. So he just dropped probably another round and a half farther than what he should have dropped.
And it almost like balances her early pick of Dak Prescott. Like you'd think like, oh, round 2, you're gonna miss out on your RB2 or your wide receiver 1. And if you know, Dak in the 2nd, Jacobs in the 5th, overall, that's like a good draft position for them combined. So I think that pick really, really helped her team. Great pick for Annie there.
Stacks it with Tyler Lockett. I believe Tyler Lockett, let's flip back up. Is that her
Yep.
first wide receiver?
Mm-hmm.
She's got McLaurin. So McLaurin and Lockett.
Yep.
Pretty good stack, actually. Again, Lockett is one of those guys who has huge weeks and then disappears. So there's a little bit of a boom bust with him. McLaurin, I think, is going to have a really big year. So
Same.
So far through round 5, I do like how Annie's team is rounding out, and I think she is one of my favorite teams. When we get down to the end, I like where she's at.
Your pick of Gus Edwards annoyed me because I was going to take Gus Edwards, and I don't think anybody else was. Not super upset with who I got, but I would have preferred Gus Edwards to the next 2 running backs I picked up.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that the J.K. Dobbins injury happened so late in preseason that the draft position value hadn't caught up yet to where he should have been. So he's definitely on my eye list, and he's company, next to Lamar Jackson, he's going to have
he's going
a
to get
lot of rushing attempts,
carries, right? At least. So
behind a revamped Baltimore Ravens offensive line, I think their running game is just going to be awesome this year.
I agree. I like the Miles Gaskin pick because UW in Miles Gaskin was solid last year, although I think he's one of the riskier running backs taken.
Yeah, I agree. His upside is huge, but also you have no idea what's happening in Miami.
Aiden spending heavy capital on Javonte Williams. I think that's going to be a make or break pick for his team. His team ends up with Javonte as his RB2, and I think that's going to hold him back for the first few weeks. And
I'd say about the first 6 weeks, we're still going to see a lot of Melvin Gordon getting his run. But once he gets his feet set, Williams is the better running back there. He's got more talent. He's got fresh legs.
What worries me is that Gordon is on his last year of his contract, and the Broncos might just run into the ground, right? Which could take away a lot from Javonte.
We'll see if they're competitive. I like Teddy Bridgewater taking over there. Same. I think they'll have a better chance. They've got a good defense. If they're competitive, they're going to put their best player on the field.
I thought Pops, Kareem Hunt's value makes sense where he picked him. For the upside, if Chubb goes down, he's really an RB1, right? Most handcuffs are more of RB2s. Hunt, maybe top 5 RB if Chubb goes down, but there were other running backs that I would have taken if I were him with no running backs off the board yet. So maybe just in terms of roster construction, not the best pick for his team, still a good value for Hunt there.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Davis and Damian Harris are both going to be starting running backs. Good value. With Damian Harris, value went way up when Cam got released and Mac Jones became the starter. Again, a guy whose draft capital was still catching up to his recent news. So some good value on Damian Harris. I probably would have grabbed one of those two over Kareem Hunt. Also, still on the board at that time would have been Raheem Mostert. I probably also would have grabbed him over Kareem Hunt at that if for my roster construction.
Yeah.
If I was Bill Demons.
Yeah. Looking for your number one running back, you want to just take the starting running back on a team, right? And there was still Mike Davis, Damian Harris, and Raheem Mostert sitting there. It's just surprising. Maybe the upside will pay off for him. Maybe, Chubb goes down and he has the RB1 in fantasy. Who knows? But I questioned that pick. Pops.
DJ Moore, Justin Herbert going back to back at the end of the draft. I like DJ Moore a lot this year. I think he could have a big year with Sam Darnold there. Rest of 6, Herbert, Mostert, Lamar Jackson, Leonard Fournette, Brandon Ayuk, Aaron Rodgers, Jerry Jeudy, Hawkinson, Claypool, Pitts, Tanyan, Drake. So a couple of tight ends, Hawkinson, Kyle Pitts, who have a lot of upside this year, but also have a lot of risk in their picks as well. We know Hawkinson's dealing with a bit of an injury, preseason injury. Kyle Pitts is a rookie who's just has that built-in question mark of being a rookie.
Yeah.
Again, that's why I wanted a tight end early, so I didn't have to deal with some of these risky players. Also, Robert Tonyan coming off there too.
Notable highlight is Gabe's pick of Lamar Jackson here. Round 6.3 is so late for Lamar Jackson.
Especially for all these other quarterbacks coming off the board.
Yeah.
I probably would have been looking at Lamar too if he dropped.
It was really hard for me not to take Lamar at 6.2, but Mostert really represented the last starting running back on their team available. Maybe Melvin Gordon, but I had my eyes on another quarterback later in the draft. I just couldn't break my quarterback late strategy. But looking back, maybe I should have for Lamar Jackson sitting right there.
I thought the best player on the board coming into this round was Brandon Ayuk, and I had my eyes on him, and I really didn't want to draft him because I already had George Kittle, and I had a bit of a sigh of relief when Aiden took him, so it didn't mean I had to put him on my team. I ended up going with another second-year wide receiver, Jerry Jeudy, who I think's value is going to go way up if Teddy Bridgewater stays a starting quarterback there in Denver.
See, for me, I think Sutton goes up more with Bridgewater.
Bridgewater loves a slot wide receiver. He loves throwing across the middle of the field. That's kind of Jerry Jeudy's style. Sutton's more of on the edge, running deep, and Teddy Bridgewater goes deep, about one of the lowest quarterbacks in the league. I think his average depth of target last year was around 7 yards. So he's not a guy who throws deep a lot, which I think leads to Jerry Jeudy. And Jerry Jeudy, his ceiling is so big if you look at his targets last year, he has the highest percentage in the league last year of uncatchable targets. So 30% of his targets were deemed uncatchable last year. Even if you cut that by half, and you take him down to like just above league average, that'll add another 300-400 yards onto his total from last year. bring him up to about 1,200 yards for the season and probably add another couple touchdowns. So I'm really excited. I have Jerry Jeudy on almost every team I have this year. So very excited for that pick.
I think in round 6 too, Kenyon Drake goes pretty early to Luke. It's just kind of what happens when people like me take a bunch of running backs, people like Joe. There's just not many running backs left in round 6. High upside just goes down. Seeing as
Leonard Fournette, Drake, a little bit early, I think, in those rounds. And I think you're going to start seeing that more too. By the round 10, there's really not going to be any running backs because people are just taking people too early.
Yeah, I think Pops would have benefited to take Melvin Gordon here, even though Gordon's going to have a fading role. I see Ronald Jones as the starter in Tampa Bay, not Fournette, even though Fournette had a great playoff run. Just slightly different values in my mind of, where running backs should be taken. So Pops' team ends up with Kareem Hunt and Leonard Fournette as his RB1 and 2.
What do you think about Robert Tonyan in that round?
I mean, I didn't.
Or Pitts or Hawkinson, those 3 running back or tight ends in round 6.
I think you agree with me here, as in if you don't get one of the top 3 tight ends, you're waiting till late to grab a tight end.
Yeah.
I don't see the value in round 6. Like there's other people you can take there that I think have more upside at positional value. Like the difference between tight end 5 and tight end 12 is going to be pretty minimal. And so
right.
I like Robert Tonyan and I really like Kyle Pitts' players, but in terms of draft position, I would never take a tight end in that area. Same goes to Mark Andrews. Like after Waller, I was out on tight end until there's scraps and I'll take the scraps. So just kind of how I view the tight end position. I don't think they're bad.
Kyle Pitts has a lot of preseason hype. He didn't play in a whole lot of preseason games or have a whole lot of preseason action, which could be an indicator they're saving him for the regular season. But there's just so much on the table for a rookie tight end, even if he had the greatest season ever by a rookie tight end. That would still put him, if you put him against Leicester, that would put him about tight end 7 last year.
Yeah.
And that would be Logan Thomas. So would you really be happy with last year's Logan Thomas drafting in the 6th round when there are still other wide receivers and running backs and quarterbacks and other positions out there?
There's still Kenny Galladay, there's still Robbie Anderson, there's still high upside wide receivers with high floors, and still Odell, there's still Cortland Sutton. There's a bunch of guys I would take first. And
speaking of Kenny Galladay, like he dropped. Kenny Galladay wasn't on my draft board at all. I was not, didn't want him, wasn't expecting him. He usually goes in the 4th or 5th round. And I almost picked him when I grabbed Jerry Jeudy just because of the value. And he drafted another round, and I'm pretty excited to have him at round 7.
Yeah, I mean, like T. Higgins and Michael Gallup and such going before Kenny Galladay kind of blows my mind. Same with Kenyon Drake. Like, I think Daniel Jones sucks, but I think Kenny Galladay is really good, so it doesn't really matter, right? Like, if you're that good,
he had
matter.
Terrible quarterback play in Detroit when Stafford went down, and he was still a top wide receiver. Thinking of David Blau and other random guys in Detroit that were throwing him the ball, and he was still having huge games.
And in terms of Robert Tonyan, I think Tonyan will be fine. I bet he'll finish as like tight end 5, but he was great last year because of crazy touchdown rates, right? Which is like one of the only indicators you can expect to regress to the mean, right? Like very predictably, he shouldn't have had that many touchdowns. And so I think he'll do worse than last year, even though
So
yeah.
round 7, T. Higgins, Melvin Gordon, Michael Gallup, Logan Thomas, Tom Brady, Kenny Galladay, Robbie Anderson, Jonnu Smith, I think was a really good value for tight end there. First defense off the board in the 7th round, Buccaneers defense, Odell Beckham, Michael Thomas, who is a very interesting pick there for number 7, and Cortland Sutton rounding out round 7. Who, again, I think Galladay and Cortland Sutton are probably the 2 best values in that round.
Yeah, I agree. I think Odell a pretty solid round as well. Positional round value for Gabe.
Yeah, we haven't seen it from Odell in about 3 years, 4 years. So
yeah, we really
who,
haven't.
who who knows if he's got anything left? Maybe could be big.
Buxty
But
again with Pops' team construction, like still being light on running back. Like Darrell Henderson was still available. It really surprised me he didn't take Henderson there.
yeah,
Surprised me anyone else didn't take Henderson. I didn't take Henderson because I had 4 starting running backs already. So it really doesn't make a ton of sense to grab him. But it really shocked me that, Buck Steve
well,
taken ahead of the starting running back for the Rams. Also, he took
and
in the next
my
round,
opinion,
Sony Michelle ahead of Darrell Henderson, which also surprised me. Like, man, crazy picks.
and in my opinion, Buxty isn't even the best defense.
No, I
Like
agree.
you've got the Rams, you've got
Steelers.
Steelers defense, correct. Even the defense I grabbed in the very last round, the Miami Dolphins defense, they have a lot of young talent and they got even better in the draft this year. So I'm excited for them. Broncos defense is solid. Chicago Bears defense is always good.
Ravens defense is all
Um,
good.
yeah, so definitely surprised at that pick. He probably could have rated to the last round and still gotten the Bucks defense.
I like Tom Brady for the Mud Dogs. I think solid value in the 7th. I think Brady basically does what he did last year and finishes as a top 10 quarterback. So I think a pretty safe, solid pick right there.
Yep, Brady somebody I had my eye on again for that 10th rounder later, but
not as high on Jonnu Smith as you, although with Mac Jones, I get it. But again, I just wouldn't be taking tight ends in around 5, 6, 7. But if you're going to, I would have picked Jonnu Smith over Logan Thomas, Robert Tonyan, and Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, I like Logan Thomas. I think he's got a lot of potential this year, and I like Jonnu Smith. A little bit early, but I think those are pretty good for round 7 because if you've got your other positions kind of settled, it's nice to at least have somebody you know is going to be solid. Both those guys are going to be top 10 tight ends. Not that tight end 7, 8, 9 is really valuable, but at least you have one of those guys. And then later on, you can pick a tight end who maybe has a potential to break out this year.
Michael Thomas, probably the most strange pick in that round, or just like one of the more notable ones. Everything I saw said he's coming back after the bye week, which would mean he's playing week 6. And I had traded for McCaffrey last year, and I am well aware of the there's no guarantee he's coming back type thing, right?
Let me pull up Mike Thomas. For some reason, I thought that he's starting the season on the PUP list. Is that correct?
He is, yeah. So he's out weeks 1 through 5. 5 is the Saints bye week, and they're saying he could have came back earlier, but he'll be back week 6. That's what Stefania Bell of ESPN says. And so it sucks because I could have taken Sutton, right? And I'm high on Sutton. But I think when it comes to the end of the season, likely a healthy Thomas is significantly more valuable than a healthy Sutton. So it's kind of a play on the season-long depth for your team type thing, it's early to start doing those things. But if Thomas were not injured, I think he would easily be a second-round pick this year.
And you pair Mike Thomas with Antonio Brown.
Yep.
Antonio Brown, round 8, a little bit of a reach. He usually drops a little farther, but he might have made it back. It's hard to say.
I
But
don't
if
think
he's the guy
so.
you want,
I know that Gabe would have taken him over Devon Smith
Hmm.
at that next pick. So I had to take him right there. And I
Yeah.
know Gramps would have taken him round 8 instead of Corey Davis. I know they both had him next up. So I think Antonio Brown takes over as the wide receiver 2 in Tampa Bay behind Mike Evans. I think Godwin fades, and I think Brown has 1,000-yard, 8-touchdown season for sure. He's just too talented not to, and Tom Brady invested too much in him.
It's interesting to think that because Antonio Brown's what, 32, 33,
Yeah.
and Godwin is 25.
Yeah.
So I would expect the young buck 25-year-old to have a lot more in the tank and have a pretty good season this year.
I mean, I think a good comparison is Julio Jones is the same age as Antonio Brown. And he slots in to Tennessee immediately as the wide receiver 2 with upside for more, depending on just how it falls between him and AJ Brown, right? And we really saw.
The difference is they only have 2 receiving options in Tennessee. In Tampa Bay, you have the 3 wide receivers. You also have Gronk and OJ Howard, who are going to demand some targets.
And guys like Jaden Mickens from UW and Scotty Miller, who are also good receivers.
And Giovanni Bernard, I know he's a little hurt to start the season, but when he gets back on the field, he's going to take up that James White role that Tom Brady likes to have. So he's going to eat up a lot of passing work. So we'll see how much there is to go around in Tampa Bay. I think all the receivers will be good, but we'll see how good.
Yeah, I like Gabe's pick there and Devon Smith. Probably immediately the number 1 wide receiver in Philly, and Smith with the best historic college career as a receiver of all time.
Yeah, there's a couple of guys in round 8 that are probably the number 1s for their team. Devonta Smith, Corey Davis should be the number 1 there in New York. I thought that was a really smart pick. I had my eyes on Corey Davis a lot too. The guy I grabbed, Will Fuller, should be the number 1 in Miami. They paid him to do so. He misses game 1 to finish off his 6-game suspension. But even last year, when he was on the field, he was electric.
Part of that probably being he had one of the best quarterbacks in Watson. I don't know how he'll do with Tua, but I think he has really high upside there. I think by far, though, the best pick in this round is Joe with Darrell Henderson. Even if he gets hurt later in the season, he's going to be the RB1 for the Rams for a while, health permitting. And it's crazy, like starting running back in the 8th round. If I didn't already have 4 starting running backs, I would have taken Henderson in the 6th round, like, or the 7th round. It's just crazy how far he fell. I see Henderson go in the 4th round all the time.
For me, yeah, I agree with Henderson and Sony. I think they're both going to be valuable this year. For me, just for my roster construction, I started out running back, tight end. And so I knew to catch up with people like Aaron who are high wide receiver heavy at the beginning. I needed a string of wide receivers with potential. Yeah. So rounds 4 through 8, I grabbed the 4 best wide receivers I could to try and compensate a little bit for my running back, wide receiver.
Yep, same.
Round 9, let's do 9 and 10 together. I'm not going to read them through. things that jumped out to you from rounds 9 and 10? Good steals, good values.
Yeah. Graham's taking a second quarterback before you and I have taken a first quarterback. Bunch of defenses falling early for me for them to fall. Aiden with Jalen Hurts. Great pick there, I think, round 9. I like his upside. Kayla with a fantastic pick of Jamal Williams, round 9.
And I think it was a needed pick. I probably would have picked him on the next round,
Yep.
if he had still been there, but needed for her because she does have Swift. And I don't know. I am personally really worried about Swift and his injury. I
Same.
don't know how much he gets on the field this year. If he does, he should be fine. Detroit's team looks decimated. So I don't know, but Jamal Williams is a guy who's just going to get volume and
Yeah.
probably starting from week 1.
Having Swift and Williams this year is essential and just a great pick because she has Detroit's running back room locked up now. It's like, boom, Detroit running backs. Okay, Liz. So great pick there. I would have taken Sermon if you didn't take him right there because I had Mostert, and I think less dramatically, but similar to the Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams role. I think Mostert's only the RB1 all season if he stays healthy, and he hasn't done that yet. So there's a lot of risk there without Sermon.
And San Francisco they invested a lot of value. They traded up in the draft to grab Sermon in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
And if you look back at NFL history, teams that have traded up in the 3rd round to grab a running back, that running back usually finishes in the top 15 in fantasy by the end of the season. So just going off historical records, there's a lot of big upside for Trey Sermon. I was really excited. I wanted him, and I wanted AJ Dillon. AJ Dillon went off in that round too. He's not a guy who's being talked a lot about this year, but he's taking over the Jamal Williams role in Green Bay. He's going to spell Aaron Jones a lot, so he's going to have a lot of standalone value. And the guy is huge. The guy is going to get all the goal line work down there. I think AJ Dillon could have 15 touchdowns this year.
Yeah, he could be LeGarrette Blount-like, right?
Right. I like him. It's hard to put a value on him. Like, I told Aaron after the draft, like, oh, I'm going to send you some trade offers, but like everything I could pull up, like he's one of the guys that's so hard to trade for because he's got all this potential, but he doesn't have any like actual value at the moment, and you're not going to trade him for nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So looking at the route, I was like, I don't even know what I could offer that would be a fair offer to get him over.
I like Brandon Cooks and Tyler Boyd. I think Cooks is going to be like the garbage time king this year. He's going to have like a 1,200-yard season in the 4th quarter, basically. I think
Brandon Cooks is a top 15 wide receiver on every team he's ever been on.
Yeah.
And he's been on 5 teams in the last 5 years.
He's really good. Doesn't matter his team sucks. Probably even helps him his team sucks. They're just going to be eating touchdowns defensively, and then they're going to be down 30 points, and it's going to be like, oh, teams put in their 2nd string corners and Cooks eats them for 3 touchdowns in the 4th quarter. I like Cooks this year as the garbage time king.
And who else are you going to throw to in Houston? There's no one.
Tyler Boyd, I think, great value. I think just a safe flex wide receiver who you can expect to get quite a few targets and maybe a touchdown every game. So I think solid pick there by Gabe.
Yeah, everyone's in on T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, but it's Tyler Boyd who's probably the most consistent guy on that team.
I think Jalen Waddle with Joe's roster construction, a great pick there. He already had, this is basically a bench player for him, and probably these rookie receivers, especially with his pedigree, right, worth a lottery ticket on him. So I like that pick. I went really early on Russell Gage, but I'm just like personally really high on, I think, Julio Jones vacating that many touches. I don't think Kyle Pitts fills that void. And I think Gage was already nearly startable last year, especially when Julio was not on the field. So I just think he almost plays like a Tyler Lockett role, in my opinion, this year. I think he'll be that safety blanket for Matt Ryan when Ridley and Pitts are covered.
Yep. A little early on him, but I agree. I drafted him in my other league this year. So I'm definitely in on him. But I was shocked that he went before people. There's two people who went in round 10 that I really like, which was Debo, who was the guy I landed with, which again another San Francisco player for me, but best value. The other guy was Henry Ruggs, another second year player, poised
Yeah.
to have a second year breakout. And John Brown, who we all thought was going to be coming in to be the wide receiver one in Las Vegas, requested to be dropped by the team, and the team has honored that. So he's off to be a free agent.
Yeah, I
So it
texted
leaves.
Andy and said, hey, you should start Ruggs. She had Naheem Hines in her flex. I think Ruggs blows up frequently for long touchdowns this year. He's got the speed. He's really fast.
Yep. I really like Ruggs this year as a breakout. I was targeting him in both my leagues this year, and he went earlier than I could grab him.
See, I have
Um,
Debo higher than Russell Gage in my like wide receiver list, but unlike you, who didn't let having too many 49ers stop you from drafting people, I just like I already had Mostert and I couldn't do it. I wanted a bigger spread of players from teams.
it's funny because there's some teams like if you had Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, nobody would say anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're all good players and they're all going to get their points. But when you take it to another team, you get these big question marks.
Yeah.
But yes, I do have a lot of San Francisco. I definitely they're all on the trading block for me. I pretty much said that right away.
Yeah.
But I can't. He was the best player left on the board, so I'm
You
gonna
see
take
Gabe
his
down
bet.
here, we take our tight ends finally around 10. I had Tyler Higbee actually one above Mike Gesicki, but for the same reasons, I'm going to start this player out a year, and I already had Robert Woods, and so I went Gesicki because I just liked, like from the eye test, he's really talented tight end, and I think
Hmm.
Tua's going to escape valve to him a bunch with all of those really fast receivers stretching the field. So I just think just like a high floor for him. That's all. I'm not looking for my tight end to like go ham every game. Uh,
Yeah, we'll see. Tua needs to take a step up this year.
he does. I liked Marvin Jones and DJ Chark there, especially DJ Chark. I think really great value for Joe. Chark on the bench is awesome. Pollard,
I think I think
appropriate.
Marvin Jones is going to be the number one in Jacksonville.
Yeah, I have no clue who the number one in Jacksonville is going to be. That's why I avoided them, because I think Marvin Jones, Chark, and LaVisca all have that potential, and I don't know, so I avoided it.
Let's blast through these last couple of rounds. Anything that sticks out from you, 11, 12?
Yeah, you taking Trey Lance. I know he's not your starting quarterback at first because he's not even starting, and you got Ryan Fitzpatrick later, but you did the same thing last year, waited on quarterback, and then it bit you. When you did this, I was like, oh, Sam messed up again. He's gonna have a great team, and then his quarterback's gonna hold him back. But then you took Fitzpatrick.
Yeah,
I was like, he'll be fine. But
yeah. I'm really not worried about my quarterback position and the potential of Trey Lance. He's the kind of guy who, like Lamar Jackson, could rush for 1,000 yards. When he gets the full starting role, he's got a great arm, great supporting cast around him.
yeah,
He's on like my must draft list. So
yeah.
there's no way I was going to leave this draft without Trey Lance.
I think
And there are so many serviceable quarterbacks. There's even still some on the waiver wire now, like Carson Wentz. I think is going to have a good season. That's still out there. Um, yeah, there's other guys. I'm happy with Fitzpatrick. I wanted to pair him with Jameis Winston, who you took in that same round.
Yeah.
But you
I
were
think
on it.
Winston, probably the riskiest starting quarterback in our league, fits my high risk team, but I really like his upside. I think he has crazy upside. I think Gramps is going to wind up with the steal of the draft and Marquez Callaway. What I was going to do is take Callaway and then grab Winston round 12. Was not able to do that. I wanted that stack.
Yep, I wanted Callaway too.
I wanted Callaway because until Michael Thomas comes back, he looks like the number one, and they look bomb in preseason, like bomb. And so
So between rounds 11 and 12, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kickers
yeah,
between rounds 11 and 12, which I can't believe. Defense and kickers should be your last 2 rounds. So
notable picks here: Gramps, Marquez, Callaway, great pick. Gabe, I thought really reached for Michael Carter, but then really made up for it when he picked Curtis Samuel. I think Curtis Samuel, another steal of the draft here.
Agreed.
I like the upside on Jacoby Myers now that Mac Jones is there. Worth a lottery ticket for sure.
The other quarterback, Justin Fields, rookie quarterback. If I didn't grab Trey Lance, if somebody had snaked in before me, I would have left with Justin Fields just for that big upside. So I think that was a great pick.
Agree.
And I in the 12th round, I'm pretty sure I heard, what was it? When Myers was picked, Seattle's kicker, I'm pretty sure I heard Travis go like, "Dang it, you snagged Myers." But I didn't think he realized that it was Jason Myers, the kicker.
Yeah.
So when it came up to me, I was like, "Oh, Jacoby Myers." and he was already going to be the guy that I was going to go with that round, but like that's one of the fun things about going on Zoom is sometimes you say things and you forget that other people are listening in.
Yeah.
So I was like, yes,
I was
pretty sure I took the guy that he wanted.
I was not expecting to take David Johnson in any draft anytime this year, but round 12, I think he represents a player that is valuable to have on the bench just in case of massive injury to your team and whatnot. So I was happy about that.
I took Fitzpatrick in the 13th round, Trevor Lawrence getting drafted, Tua going to the Tolt Demons.
I like Aguilar to Joe. I think high upside, especially with Mac Jones.
Ramondre got some question marks from people, but he's got some potential there in New England. He looked good this preseason.
With Damian Harris being someone who I'm not personally 100% sold on him. I haven't watched him play that much, and I saw Ramondre in preseason, and I was like, "Dang, that kid looks good." So I just wanted the handcuff. That's all.
Lots of backups coming in 14. Here's a nice late tight end target by Joe, Gerald Everett, who we know Seahawks love to use their tight end. Will Disley's been relevant. Hollister's had good games, and Gerald Everett's coming over with the Rams offensive coordinator, so a guy he knows and a system that he knows.
Yeah.
So I think that was, again, wait on tight end. This is the exact kind of guy you want to pick in a late round if you've waited on tight end. So love that pick from Joe there.
I think your pick of Evan Coleman, similar to my pick of David Johnson. It's like they're probably the starting back on a crap team, and they're worth having on the bench, right? Like, you never know.
Other backups, backup running backs. Baker Mayfield off the board there. Baker could have good season. We shall see.
Yeah.
AJ Green taken by Allwise. Pairs real nicely with DeAndre Hopkins.
Indeed. Kayla taking backup quarterback Matt Ryan. Solid backup, always safe, always startable in our league. You picked up Taysom Hill, and then I saw you just dropped him because no tight end eligibility.
I still think he might become tight end later. We'll see. I'll probably be picking him up here and there throughout the season,
I think
just in case.
I was joking with Gabe that Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill starting on your team was one of the weirdest stacks you could possibly have. That it would be hilarious to do so.
That would be awesome. Guys with some potential. Chuba gets drafted, also got dropped already and picked up again.
Like Aiden with Hunter
And
Henry to round out Johnny Smith. I think solid pick there.
Hunter Henry, he is starting on the injured reserve, I think, to start the season.
Yeah.
Or on the pup list. He's going to be missing the first few weeks of the season. So it's going to be hard to hold a non-playing tight end on your bench. I like the Jared Cook there pick a lot more, with potential with Herbert to lock that up. Amon-Ra St. Brown's got a lot of potential. Wide receiver.
Same with Terrence Marshall. I like that.
Terrence Marshall, a lot of potential. Emmanuel Sanders in Buffalo, that's a really interesting pick as well.
I thought I didn't like Luke's picks of Jamison Crowder and Mark Ingram, but it's round 16, 17. So I thought, whatever. But I just don't think Mark Ingram does anything ever again in the league.
We'll see. He could be the guy. He could be the lead back in Houston. We just don't know.
Yep.
Gabriel Davis, also a nice sneaky pick there in the last round.
Yep.
Big Ben going off the board.
Took Devontae Booker there. I was a little annoyed because I would have taken him as Saquon's handcuff. Especially with week 1 being a question for him. It looks like he's probably going to play now. Still would have liked to have Booker on my team. Roethlisberger, solid backup for Joe. Gabe rolling with Hawks D. I was annoyed. I wanted to go hometown and Hawk D it up all year. I like Kayla's pick of D. Eskridge, especially because even though DJ Dallas looked great doing the returns, I think Eskridge is going to be our return guy. So I think
if you look at the waiver wire on wide receiver, it's all the returners are slated the highest in our league, which is pretty funny.
I don't love Travis's pick of Deshaun Watson because Gabe and I made a bet for $20. Will Deshaun Watson play a snap in the NFL this season? And I say no, he won't. So I think it's a wasted pick, but I get it. The upside is there.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Gabe's preseason slideshow of the history of the league is why I took the Chiefs defense. They've been on 2 championship teams. Chiefs D. And so I was like, you know what? History repeats itself. I'm Chief D-ing up.
Yep. Smart players take their defense and kickers last 2 picks of the draft. So
really just you, me, and Gabe doing that. The podcasters. Maybe it's just so we can talk crap in our podcasts. Who knows?
It's surprising.
It is surprising.
Especially because kickers you can drop and pick up new kickers every week and stream them so easily just based off matchups. Same with defense.
I mean, I picked Greg the Leg just because I wanted skin in the game for the Thursday night opener for football. Like I just
Me too. I got stuck up.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
you want a kicker who's on a team that's going to score a lot.
Yeah.
So.
And I think Tampa Bay shuts down. Like Dallas moves the ball and they can't score. So
Yep. Sometimes they'll only get you 5 points because they score touchdowns and they only get to kick extra points. Sometimes they get stopped short and we'll rack up a bunch of field goals. So
I like Pop's pick of Alan Lazard here. If Adams were to ever miss any time, I think Lazard goes way up in value. It's almost like a handcuff wide receiver. I like Zach Ertz in round 18. He's still talented, I think, and just worth having on the bench.
Yeah.
It's crazy that
I
took Ertz in round 3. Like it blows my mind.
That's going to do it for our draft recap. Again, made some good teams. Let me
We did. I think
Up there.
everyone has a really solid, well, maybe not Pops' team with the running backs. Everyone has a really, almost everyone has a really solid top 5, 6 players. Like the players you want to see top 6 on your team. Pretty much everyone has a stacked team. And then the only places where I question people's teams are in their like second flex spot. I'm like, oh, your team sucks because your second flex sucks. And I was like, oh, the team's probably really good. And yeah, maybe they're starting someone that's not great, flex too, but like it's not really a big deal. So I'm harsh, but overall, I'm really happy with the quality of the teams. There's not anyone who I'd match my team up against and be like, I'm going to crush them this week. Not at this point. Like, I think everyone has a chance to win week 1, which is awesome.
Yeah.
That's what we want to see in the league, right?
I'm excited. Should be a nice deep league. Everyone seemed like everyone had a good time. People were focused during the draft.
Yeah.
Some oohs, some ahs.
Yeah.
And
it's really weird.
Yeah.
I mocked like 100 times, and literally only Jameis Winston is the guy who I like planned to mock for. It's kind of how it goes in our family league. Like people are just a little unpredictable.
Yep.
Did not think I was going to get Saquon and Harris like at all. It just wound up that way.
Yeah.
You didn't think he was going to get Lamar. Like we mocked a lot. We really planned out, and you just got to roll with it when it happens.
Yeah, I think that the mocking helps because like if this guy's here in this round, my eyes are on him.
Yeah,
and
that
it just helps.
Antonio and Russell Gage for me, I would have probably missed out on them if I didn't mock because I wouldn't have got them on the swing back type stuff. But aside from that, like you can't predict what people are going to do in this league pretty much ever.
No.
Unless you're me and Gabe.
Except
and I know who Gabe's going to pick.
I will say the first 4 picks were exactly who I wanted. So, except for I was hoping it would be Gibson over Clyde, but Clyde was the next on my list in round 2. But
never, not in a single mock draft ever, did I ever get Saquon at 11 or Justin Jefferson in the 3rd round. Like they just don't fall like that. Same with guys like Darrell Henderson to Joe and Curtis Samuel in the 12th. Like it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I like it. I like the unpredictability of the gridiron.
And now we got deep benches. Should be some good trades. And one good way to piss off the league is to make a trade already with your brother, and then you both drop the players that you just traded for onto the bench.
Yeah, well, we were going to drop them anyway.
Real happy.
We were going to drop them anyway, so we were like, might as well trade them first. Get a trade under the belt.
All right. Well, thanks for joining, everybody. Toodaloo. Until next time.
Yeah, this has been the Gridiron.